Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I came across this article while I was doing my last video, and it is a very good read, so I thought I'd go over it with you. Before we start, I want to thank all of you for supporting me here, either on Patreon or the Ladies and Gentlemen's Club. I truly do appreciate it. So this article, ladies and gentlemen, is just full of great information, and it is about the year without a summer that occurred, I believe it was in 1816 or 1819, but we'll get to that as we read along. And it just tells of all of the things that happened, starting with why the year without a summer occurred, and all of the culture differences that there were during that time and how it affected how people acted during that time. So let me stop talking. I'm going to get to reading because, like I said, this is a great article to go over. For those of you that may be interested in reading over it, I will leave the link to this article at the bottom of the description of the video. Right? So again, thank you very much for being here and for your support. Let's get started. So ladies and gentlemen, the year without a summer was a volcanic eruption that brought about bad changes in weather events. Right? It says here it brought about snow, sleet, and frost. And that may sound somewhat alright because we go through that every year. Throughout our whole lives, depending on where you live, we go through this every year. However, this is something that occurred after a volcanic eruption where it sent a lot of dust into the atmosphere that blocked out the sun, which resulted in the entire world having a year without a summer. Have you ever heard of a year without a summer? In 1816, a volcanic eruption and cooling of the sun brought about snow, sleet, and frost. So it's a volcanic eruption that occurred during a grand solar minimum, ladies and gentlemen. The world experienced a sudden drop in temperatures and an uptick in erratic weather patterns, causing massive food shortages across the northern hemisphere. Here's the story behind the great cold summer of 1816. Even now, this year is sometimes called 1800 and nearly frozen to death. What caused the 1816 freezing summer? Nobody apparently had an immediate answer, but many conjectured that the curious weather was due to the positioning of the planets, the distance between Earth and the Moon, or sunspots. At the time, Earth was already experiencing the concluding decades of the Little Ice Age due to a period of relatively low solar activity from 1790 to 1830, known as the Dalton Minimum. May 1816 in particular had the lowest sunspot number to date since record keeping on solar activity had begun. As you may know, we at the Old Farmer's Almanac use solar activity as the driver for our long-range weather forecasts. And one factor we've found is that periods of low activity are associated with colder temperatures averaged across the Earth. But it was not only solar activity that contributed to the summer this year. The volcanic eruption of Mount Tambora, a 13,000-foot high volcano on the island of Sumbawa near Bali, Indonesia, was the primary cause of the year without a summer. The eruption happened in April of 1815 and was one of the greatest volcanic eruptions in history. Its toll perhaps as many as 90,000 lives. Mount Tambora ejected immense amounts of volcanic ash into the upper atmosphere, where it was carried around the world by the jet stream. The volcanic dust covered Earth like a great cosmic umbrella, dimming the sun's effectiveness during the whole cold year. This resulted in a further reduction in solar irradiance, which brought record cold to much of the world during the following summer. Such an eruption would explain the appearance of the 1816 sun in the clouds of smoke, to which must be added the speculation surrounding a complete eclipse of the sun on May 26, 1816, and of the moon on June 9th. The unusual cold played havoc on agriculture in many parts of the world, and directly or indirectly creating crop failures, dramatic increases in food prices, famines, cultural disruptions, and epidemics of cholera and other disease. There were major weather events across the United States, which numbered 18 states at a time, with Vermont, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, and Louisiana having been added to the original 13 states. Now it goes on to read of all of the crazy weather events that were happening during the summer of 1816, which are many frosts killed off most crops in upstate New York and the higher elevations of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont. On June 6th, snow fell in Albany, New York, and Dennisville, Maine. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these are places that don't get snow in the summer, right? So this kind of explains the severity of that summer, which really wasn't a summer. It was a year without a summer. In Cape May, New Jersey, frost was reported 5 nights in a row in late June, causing extensive crop damage. Lake and river ice was observed and as far north as northwestern Pennsylvania in July, with frost reported as far south as Virginia on August 20 and August 21, which are usually the hottest month of the year. Rapid, dramatic temperature changes occurred frequently as temperatures sometimes went from above normal summer levels to near freezing within hours. So there were erratic temperature changes that went from temperatures that were above normal, that were really hot, to below freezing. And that's one of the telltale signs of a grand solar minimum, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's not that it gets cold all over the place. That's not it. It's that you have erratic weather patterns, and really quick fluctuations in temperatures. Rapid, dramatic temperature changes occurred frequently, as temperatures sometimes went from above normal summer levels to near freezing within hours. U.S. grain prices at least quadrupled, and oat prices increased almost eightfold. Famine, riots, arson, and looting occurred in many European cities, while China suffered from massive crop failures and disastrous floods, and a disruption in the Indian summer monsoon season spread a cholera outbreak from the river Ganges all the way to Moscow. Wow, that's something. Ice storms in July. In the United States, among the hardest hit were the people of New England. All throughout July, heavy frosts and occasional ice storms were commonly seen. Most people took off their winter clothing only to have to put it on again. So many young and old birds were frozen that but a few were found around New England in the following 3 years. Suicides were also not uncommon. Drought, financial panic, and a lack of food goaded many to desperation. In some, as one anonymous poet put it, the trees were all leafless, the mountains were brown, the face of the country was scathed with a frown, and bleak were the hills, and the foliage sere, as had never seen at that time of year. A variety of almanacs and magazines have published their thoughts on the event too. The sun's rays seem to be destitute of heat throughout the summer. All nature was clad in a sable hue. During the entire season, the sun arose each morning as though in a cloud of smoke, red and rayless, shedding little light or warmth, and setting at night as behind a thick cloud of vapor, leaving hardly a trace of its having passed over the face of the earth. What would happen if the sun should become tired of illuminating this gloomy planet? That's questions that were asking themselves. Maybe some of them were thinking back then, due to technology, that maybe the sun was angry at the earth, and they were asking what would happen if the sun just stopped illuminating the earth. Well, that would be the end of humankind, ladies and gentlemen, and more than likely almost everything else that lives. Now, here are some chilling tales from the times. At least one Vermont farmer, according to the recollection of his nephew, James Winchester, was frozen to death in the great snowstorm of June 17. The Reverend Thomas Robbins of East Windsor, Connecticut, kept a diary of this cold year. It tells of a man in Maine freezing to death, of a foot of June snow in the Berkshires, and ice in Massachusetts that would bear the weight of a man. The entire corn crop, except in fields nearby ponds or the ocean, failed. Hailstones beat the blossoms of all fruit trees. Another story goes that Caleb went to get water at a well on the 4th of July and found that it was completely frozen 8 feet below the surface of the earth. And it remained that way until the 25th of July. The 120-day drought, which began in August, created fearsome forest fire conditions and led to fires that only the November snows could quell. Sheep froze to death in their pastures. Mackerel had to be introduced as a main course instead of pork and beef. So they had to change their diets from pork and beef to fish. The last one says that Elisha Clark of China, Maine, according to his granddaughter, Nellie Clark Strong of Somerville, Massachusetts, often picked Baltimore Orioles off the branches of orchard trees in the cold summer and brought them in the house to warm them up. And of the cultural effects, ladies and gentlemen, that the year without a summer brought on to society, it says that the lack of oats to feed the horses likely inspired the German inventor Karl Drejas to research new ways of horseless transportation, which led to his invention of the ancestor of the bicycle. Many Americans left New England for the Midwest, accelerating the westward movement of the American people. Vermont alone had as many as 15,000 emigrate, including the family of Joseph Smith, which moved from Norwich, Vermont to Palmyra, New York. This move may have made possible the publication of the Book of Mormon and the founding of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Wow, so ladies and gentlemen, so far as our culture, that grand solar minimum and the effects of the volcanic eruption really changed a lot of our culture as to what it is today. So there are some things that we may not have today had that not occurred. And this one is pretty cool, ladies and gentlemen. To finish it off, in June of 1816, Mary Shelley was forced by the weather to spend her Swiss holiday indoors with her literary companions, where to pass the time they decided to have a contest to see who could write the scariest story. And the result of the novel was Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. That's actually pretty cool. It's unfortunate that they had to go through all of that pain in order for us to get Frankenstein out of it. However, that's pretty cool that they were able to create something within that time that has stood the test of time and that people are still now reading. Well, that's about it for this one, ladies and gentlemen, but I want to go ahead and revisit something that I always talk about. Prepare for at least 1 year, because the implications of this story here tells me that this occurrence, that this crisis lasted for more than a year, even though it's called the year without a summer. You know, they still had to have food to get them through the next harvest. And if you prepare for at least 1 year, you would be able to supplement those things that you prepared with things that you can get during the present in that crisis. So prepare for at least 1 year minimum. That way you can hopefully have enough sustenance and preps to last you more than a year. That's going to be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it and you get something out of it. I will leave the link to this article under the description of this video so that you can revisit it. And it's actually worth taking notes and seeing what they went through over there so that we can see what we may come close to expecting should that happen again. So if you hear that a volcano blew its top and it spewed ashes to 90,000 feet in the atmosphere, then it gives us an understanding of what may happen. Now, will it be the same today as it was back then? Probably not, because we are in a different time, and in a different era. However, it will probably rhyme. Like they say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it probably rhymes, or most often rhymes, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining me today. Have a great day, and we will see you on the next one. God bless. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining in today. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Thank you very much for... Should I start over again, Mama? Or the Ladies and Gentlemen's Club. See, whenever I'm not looking at the camera, I say it perfect. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome.
Hi.
Come on, I was actually going to do it good. That only took me 7 tries this time. The result was the novel Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus.
Prometheus.
Or the modern Prometheus.